Our first speaker to share their vision of the future is Commissioner Connolly, who is South Australia's inaugural Commissioner for Children and Young People. And in this role, the Commissioner advocates at a systemic level for the rights and interests of children and young people, directly engaging with them to seek their views. Please welcome the Commissioner.
Okay, good afternoon. I've sat here very quietly at the back, wanted to be part of every single conversation that's been up here on stage. I want to just shout out a couple of things. A good book I'm reading, Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. A fantastic podcast, Dolly Parton's America, which is a must for everyone who believes anything about feminism. And the third thing I wanted to say is I convene a menstruation network across Australia. So periods, menopause, it's my whole gig. So I'm loving this, and I'm one of the few women who was in the post-menopausal. So anyway, and I also want to acknowledge I come today, travel from Ghana country, and I would like to acknowledge traditional owners of the unceded land that we're meeting on today. So it's a speed. This is going to go as fast as anything. So we've got 7 minutes, and it's already lost 30 seconds. All right, here we go. So, is that right? Yep. As South Australia's inaugural Commissioner for Children and Young People, my mandate is to promote the rights, best interests and well-being of South Australian children and young people. I advocate for the views, aspirations and rights of young children and young people to be affirmed, promoted and protected, working to give children a voice across our society. Children and young people are the experts in their own lives, and they want to have their opinions heard, taken seriously and acted upon. In fact, it is their right. My approach in my work is to seek children and young people's perspective on policy, process and practice, to amplify their views and voices, to represent them in the public arena, and to deliver on the things that children and young people have asked me to deliver on and to be accountable to them. Over the past few years, I've had face-to-face conversations and held focus groups with thousands, tens of thousands of South Australian children and young people. They come from diverse backgrounds, live in a variety of places and spaces, and have shared their views on a range of issues and topics. I've heard firsthand how many children and young people in South Australia lead happy, active lives and feel respected by the adults with whom they interact. They value their family relationships, including those they have with their family pets. They value their friendships, their education, their learning, their culture, as well as opportunities to participate in their local communities. I've discussed sensitive topics such as bullying, poverty, school exclusions, mental health, sex, menstruation, and I've heard from children and young people about the impacts that unstable housing, homelessness and having no money has on them. I've heard from children who are caring for their parents who have health challenges and have coming from refugee and migrant backgrounds. However, it is the impact of sexism, gender roles and gender stereotype has on the lives of children and young people that has really surprised me. While it's clear that the impacts are different for boys and girls, it still affects almost every aspect of a child or young person's aspirations, relationships and well-being. As a generation that demands more respect for diversity, young people want an education that uses a more gender-sensitive approach. They want to be part of a generation who advances gender equity by working with teachers and educators to address and positively transform gender equality in their schools. Children and young people have also expressed their frustration and concern that discussion and instruction about sexism, sexual assault and domestic violence are not currently a feature of their relationships and sexual health education. This leaves them feeling unsafe at school, at work and socially, as well as within their intimate relationships. We have so much further to go to address behaviours that enable girls in grades 7 and 8 to be catcalled in the playground by older boys, coerced into sending nudes of themselves, or bullied in ways that sexualise and degrade them. Not to mention the behaviours that put pressure on young men to repress their emotions so that they don't risk being seen as weak or feminine. I'm going to let you listen to some of the voices of children from direct quotations from the work that they send me. Is it going to work? Is that buffering or doing anything? No. How do you go back? The video's not working, folks. Can you override me?
I want grown up to know what it is like when kids get bullied because of their gender.
The world will be better if females and males are treated with the same respect. The world will be better if we could stop catcall. It hurts people and it hurts the world. I worry about people not letting girls do the stuff that boys do.
The world would be better if girls had more rights.
The Commissioner has also heard firsthand from students that gender stereotyping is still widespread across schools and classrooms.
Boys grow up to make big changes in the world.
Boys are more creative and more imaginative than girls, as girls don't think outside the box.
I want grown-ups to know that boys are not always the smartest and that boys don't always have better ideas. Gender bias and inequality has a direct impact on young women's aspiration and expectations of their family and working lives.
Everybody will tell me these days that gender doesn't make a difference anymore. Then they'll buy me pink clothes, give me some Barbies, and ask me if I want to be a nurse. Girls from an extremely young age are given babies to play with and care for. This shows girls the path of growing up and having a destiny of just being a mum. Girls are forced into a stereotype that is very hard to break, due to the majority of girls being taught this.
Issues related to menstruation and period pain continue to have an impact on the participation of young women.
Many girls skip days off school due to having their periods because it is too difficult to deal with at school and you don't feel as comfortable as you do in your own home.
Bullying is huge, especially in the preteen age group. Boys would say things like, "Are you on your period? You're being a bitch," and other embarrassing and derogatory remarks towards girls in their periods. For this reason, I felt incredibly uncomfortable around my period, when I did and even when I didn't have it.
I think that might be the end of that. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'll whiz through the next little bit. So my aim, these are real things. This is what kids talk to me about every day. So we are a long way off having gender equality. My aim is to increase the broad understanding we all have of the impacts that sexism, harassment and gender stereotype has on children and young people, and in doing so create a dialogue with decision makers that can support improvements in the way schools in particular address sexism and stereotyping. Now, it'd be far too simplistic to suggest that schools alone can change this deep gender inequality and inequity that exists in our society. However, it's also remiss to not address the issues identified by children and young people themselves, and the role they say school has in promoting and reinforcing sexist ideals, attitudes and behaviour. Gendered thinking can influence what children and young people find important in a future career path and therefore shape their educational choices from a young age, including what subjects they pursue and how they evaluate their competency in certain subjects. While gendered thinking has been shown to positively shape boys' future career paths and subject preferences, for girls it also shapes their own competency beliefs, which has been a pretty key feature of what we've heard today. Girls are often taught to question their own ability and confidence, where boys are taught to be confident, have more self-belief, even in an education context. I'm not sure what the slides are. I'm going to go over the what can we do. For those of you interested in any of my reports, Menstruation Matters, Sex Ed and Stereotypes and Sexism. So to finish, I did take the the topic seriously, so future women, so that's why the focus is very much on girls. But my vision is a future where children and young people's aspirations, relationships and well-being are not limited or determined by gender stereotyping, and that school is a place that intentionally calls out sexism and promotes equality and inclusion for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.